Cool Guys, Ladies and Gentlemen podcast. It kept progressing. My intrigue got more. Now, here's the deception. Even though my beliefs and everything were rooted scripturally, okay? My depression, this is how bad it can get, was so bad that it overtook that. It overpowered anything because I didn't fight it. I just, I gave up. And what was happening was I was getting attention from something that didn't exist. It wasn't human, wasn't my wife, it wasn't friends, wasn't family, because whatever they said to me was irrelevant. Why? Because they didn't understand what I was going through. I couldn't understand what I was going through. I didn't even feel like
and
I didn't know.
I found there were a couple times when I was going through it where you try to reach out to somebody, and like for me, I have an amazing spouse, but sometimes that you want to talk to some, maybe another man or somebody, a friend, someone that, someone different, because it's kind of like, I can't really explain it, but sometimes you just want someone else to talk to that might understand what you're talking about, from a male perspective or whatever, for me. And you go and you put yourself in a vulnerable position by trying to open up, and they don't have the time to listen to you. And it's just kind of like, oh, yeah, whatever. But then again, if someone takes that final step that no one should ever have to take, then it's, oh, man, why didn't he talk to somebody? Maybe they tried and didn't want to listen. And the thing is, if someone, even if it seems, like, I don't know, if it comes off as, whatever, take the time, take 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Just, you don't need, a lot of times they don't want advice. They just want someone to listen to them. Just get it off their chest. And then there's people that try to help too much by trying to give every bit of advice for everything they say. And it's like, no, just listen. Sometimes someone just needs someone to talk to explain what they're going through. And just a hug, hey, you'll get through this,
Again, it doesn't just matter how strong you think you are, or a tough guy, or whatever your situation is. It's something, when it comes to stuff like that, especially depression and stuff, I encourage anybody who I know who is facing that, talk to somebody, get help, right? Talk to a stranger. Reach out, because you never want to find yourself in a position where you don't feel like yourself, because when that happens, unfortunately, it's too late for a lot of people. They end up ultimately taking their life. Thankfully, it didn't come to that. But the point being is I had enough faith and belief in me still to really, really struggle, and I did it. But Richard, I'll tell you what, that was the scariest thing ever in my life that ever happened to me.
I'd like
Wasn't
to
the house
people
fire
too? It was something I've noticed, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that, with the advent of everything going digital, conversation and just sitting and talking has gone out the window, even among couples and things like that. You go to the restaurant, and you see people, two people sitting at a table, and they're just both on their phones, no conversation. And, what I would challenge people is there's nothing like a good two-way conversation, kind of like we're having here. And something that I've done is at my local church, there's a gentleman that it's like, I'd like to get to know him a little better. And so one day I asked him, hey, would you like to go out for a cup of coffee? He's like, sure. So we went out to a local coffee shop, and I'll bet we'd never sat and talked before. No more than, hi, how you doing? Shake hands on a Sunday morning, whatever. But we sat probably 2-3 hours just talking about just all kinds of different things, everything from our past to, here's how I grew up. These are my hobbies. I think if people took the time, find somebody, my challenge is to find somebody it could be someone you work with, maybe it's a neighbor, and just say, hey, how about we just, someone maybe you want to get to know a little better, and just say, hey, let's go out for a cup of coffee and just, put the phones away and just sit and find something to talk about. Leave controversial subjects aside. Just have a good general conversation about, I don't know, what you like to do, what kind of movies you like to watch, the music
Right.
you like to listen to. Do you play an instrument? Oh, that's interesting. Where did you learn to do that? There's just so many different things once you get to talking about that, and you learn. I love learning about other people and hearing their stories, because everybody's got a story to tell and they're all interesting. And I could sit for hours just listening to people tell stories. And but yeah, I mean, it's, if you've never done it before, it could be very, very maybe scary to think about. But it's a great way to get to know someone better. And I'll tell you what, you leave a conversation like that feeling just so, I mean, your day is just brighter, just having that good open conversation and get to know people better. And then it also makes it easier if you need to find someone to talk to. You're opening up that line of communication, because now you're more comfortable because you know each other a little better, and so it's easier to say,
And
"Hey,
they
can I
said that
talk to you?"
even
It's,
though doing
you get
that, as
something like
crazy as
that.
it sounds, it actually made them feel a little bit better and gave them the strength to talk to somebody. So whatever it takes for you to talk and to get out what you're feeling, do it. You're not alone. You're not the only one going through it. And you're not by yourself. And there are people who will listen to you.
Yep.
I don't know. Is he? No, he wasn't. Was he a real, like, based off a real guy?
No, not that I'm aware of. It was
Oh.
just a story written by Charles Dickens.
Okay. Well, because sometimes, man, you never, like, how when we do the
I mean,
music.
you could pick a lot of people in real life that would fit that scenario, but
No, that's true. That is true. Only because a lot of times I stumble across this, and I think if something is, like a baloney story, or it's a myth or whatever, it turns out that it's legend, but it started from somewhere. Like at one point, it was based off of, just like Saint Nick. Okay, he's a real dude.
yeah.
And, Christmas, as, I'm not getting religious on anybody by any means, but you scripturally read, if you know the scriptures, like it has nothing to do with Christmas at all, not even related. Christmas started much later than that, and it was actually started by royalty. But my point is that that guy, well, they turned him into Santa Claus. But I always thought it was like some just,
I did.
fairy tale
I
thing,
think I
but
had
it's
cable
not.
at the time. I watched like the first season of it. Couldn't really get into that. What really piqued my interest was it was a YouTube channel. I can't remember the name of the gentleman. He actually passed away a couple of years ago. But he would interview people and even talked about his own personal experience, and just listening to him talk, like sometimes when you hear people tell stories, it's kind of okay, it sounds like what everybody else says. And sometimes, some people sound genuine, some people sound like they're making something up.
Right.
It's a mixed bag. But this guy just seemed genuine, and I had never really, I had heard of Bigfoot and never really thought much of it, but watching this guy and listening to his stories and the interviews he did with people, just really raised that question, is it possible? I'm of the thing that I do think there is something that does exist. There's too many people that have seen things, but I've never personally seen it, and I'm not gonna wager my house on it or anything. But just my personal thing is, I believe that there's so much vast area, even in our own country, that people have either never been to or barely ever been to, that wouldn't be surprising that something couldn't exist out in those very remote regions. I mean, even, a lot of people don't realize even like the great lowland gorilla was considered a myth until the late 1800s when they finally were discovered. And there's the okapi was discovered, I think, in the early 1900s, which is the size of a horse, but no one even knew it existed because it blended in with the environment so well. So, who's to say what
they were
what
just
good or
men
shouldn't be
of
Great
might.
renown.
Yeah. And for the longest time, I believed that what if Bigfoot was one of them? Because a lot of the reports that you read about, they're interdimensional, that they can go through portals or that they appear and disappear. And I'm like, what if some of them survived? Right? Because they were spirit, to begin with. But then the further I understood Scripture, the more I read, well, no, they were flesh. So they would have perished along with everybody but Noah and his family. So I kind of put that aside. But with the media, YouTube, and all of these different things, now everybody has a camera, okay? My dog even has one. What I found interesting was this, and again, like you, I can't prove it, I'm not going to bet my house on it, but many indigenous people of, like, say, the Pacific Northwest, they would tell stories about a large, hairy, human-like being, and different tribes, they would have, like, different names and traditions, including Sasquatch. And so the word derived, that word Sasquatch, from, it's called, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, Halcomelum language. Halcomelum language. But in 1924, Ape Canyon, Washington. Do you ever hear of that place?
Dr. Meldrum, who is an anthropologist, and he's one of the big names in the study of Bigfoot, and he was one of them that was one of the speakers down there, and I think he was also on Finding Bigfoot, but one of the things that I remember him talking about is, I believe he says he has personally seen them, and I think he's from Oregon, and that he believes, like I do, it's a flesh and blood. If they exist, I think it's a flesh and blood creature. That because he says, why would something that's supernatural need to break open trees and eat grubs and stuff like that? But the thing about finding bones, that is an interesting thing. But how many people find bear bones? Like, say, of a grizzly bear out in the wild. You don't really find those either.
That's a good point.
Is it
That's a good
possible?
point.
They say in a lot of these forests, that it doesn't take very long for a carcass to disappear between, the wolves, coyotes, things like that. And you look at species kind of like elephants. Elephants bury their own dead, and you think, how can
Really?
something that walks out? Yeah, they have elephant graveyards and stuff. I can't remember a whole lot about it, but I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they're places where they take their own dead.
I didn't know
if
that.
something like that, if Bigfoot does exist, they, who knows how, if they're of an ape, and I believe they're like of the ape family, and if so, that it's possible that they could take and maybe they bury their own. So
I didn't know that. You know what? I'm going to have to research that.
yeah, look that up. Like I say, don't quote me on that because it's been a long time, but I'm pretty sure. I know they grieve their dead, and they and
What you just said
elephants have a
about,
great memory.
well, how often do people come across bear carcass or any other carcass? Like, unless, you specifically live, say, like, in those areas. But even still, you are right about that, because I remember watching a show a while back where they did talk about that, where bear carcass are like one of the rarest to find. Like,
Look at the size of a grizzly bear. I mean, they're huge.
Yeah, absolutely
Probably
right
close,
about that.
Probably close to the size of what a lot of people say Bigfoot looks like.
Well, they say
Bigfoot might be a little bigger, but
Yeah.
you're still. I've been to the zoo. I've been up close to a grizzly. Those things are huge.
and to dwarf that is the Kodiak. And they say that it's like one in a I don't know, I forget, it was like in the millions that people find the remains of a Kodiak bear. And those things are like, some of them have been recorded at 15 feet standing. That's huge. Yeah. So I wonder, right, if, with that being said, to your point, it was actually Jerry Carew. That was his name. He made the footprints famous in 1958. He's the one who gave rise to the name Bigfoot. And then, of course, we're all familiar with Roger Patterson and
tend
Bob
to be
Gimlin.
very self-centered, very maybe not in every case, but they're, they hoard their wealth. Their success is, they're looking for happiness and they're not finding it through their job, their marriage, their whatever it is, their money, and they're still searching, not realizing that by doing for others helps bring and sharing with others, it helps bring that happiness and joy into a person's life. It's that, like the old adage, it's better to give than to receive. As a kid, you don't understand that, but when you become an adult, it's like, you don't need to buy me a gift for Father's Day. Just having you here, that whole thing of, I just want to buy for you. You don't need to buy me anything. It just brings joy to me to be able to give to you. And so if you have someone that's, say like Ebenezer Scrooge that hoards everything, it doesn't want to.
That's a good analogy.
You just become a bitter old person because you have no one to share that happiness and joy with.
That's that's stuff, right? People are just filming people getting the crap kicked out of them. And I'm thinking to myself, and that finally somebody intervened. And you're sitting there watching this, and I couldn't watch it anymore. I mean, I had to turn it off. I'm like, I can't sit here because I'm feeling rage, right? Yeah. I'm feeling this rage. Like, if I was there, and of course, it's one of those scenarios like you watch Naked and Afraid. Oh, hey, buddy, do this different. Well, you're sitting on a couch. It's easy for you to say that. But if you were there, like, what would you do? Because that's really a dangerous situation. But if we were to use our world real scenario here, then do you think that would have been different? I mean, again, it's a big spin, but do you think that if people knew that was the new order, that was the new way, being kind equaled success, do you think that they would give up that royalty, that status, and stop being kinder? Naturally, though, not a fake, but naturally.
But would they necessarily have to give up say the wealth or the things that they have, but just add the kindness in?
That's a good question. No, I would say in this scenario, no, you wouldn't have to give that up. I mean, you worked hard for it. Mm-hmm. But what I would say to your point is you would have to, it'd have to be a genuine act of kindness. So here's the real test is, do you think, and my answer is, I don't know. I don't know people's hearts, but I would say no, that they would have to genuinely do an act of kindness or continue to do such. Because here's the thing. Here's where this scene would be reality is, okay, they either value their success, that every day they would try to be kind. But why would they try to be kind if they weren't in the first place? So in other words, are they going out of their way to be kind to keep what they have, or are they going out of their way to be kind because it's the right thing to do? I
think you'd have a mixed bag. Some would do it for one reason, some would do it for the other. But I think it goes back to the way we have it now, people that are kind and then those that just aren't. I don't know if maybe some people that did it because they had to be successful, if it after doing it so long, it would start to become a habit and then it would just become a natural thing after a while. That I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Depends on the person's personality, because if you have someone that's like a narcissist, I have a hard time believing that they would probably do it only because it would benefit them, not because it's benefiting someone else.
Yeah, that's a really good point, though. The Cool Guys, Ladies and Gentlemen podcast.